We're having a good old time on a Friday morning here on Screen Junkies Universe. Thanks for joining us and ending your, work week if you work Monday through Friday, but maybe you don't. Whatever. It's the end of our work week, so we're having a good time. I'm Dan Murrell. I'm your host today, joined by a fantastic panel.
The Fandom panel.
Yes, I'm rolling with it. It's a panel. First of all, Billy Business.
Yeah, Ryan told me I wasn't going to be on the show for a very long time, so this is my farewell SJU. He was like, hey, do you want to do SJU Friday? Because, you're just not going to be on it for a while, but, you can come on when you want, but it's not going to be for a long time.
Wow, all right. Well,
so I'm stoked.
Soak it up while you can, folks. You're not going to see him again for a while. We always want to soak up the Ed Greer. Ed Greer, hello. Happy Friday.
I had a trepidation on coming on because I know I'm like I'm not supposed to be here today. You know what I mean? I'm not supposed to be here today. I don't want to be like Colin Farrell in the early aughts. Just too overexposed and everybody hates him. All of a sudden, can't open a movie anymore. So please forgive me for being here, guys.
Was he a nanny cheater?
No, I think that was Jude Law.
Oh, okay. I was going to say don't cheat with a nanny, but you do you, but
I'm not going into those waters. Over here on my left, again, we have this is like the all-star panel of our panels this week. Vanessa, Gritton, welcome back.
Hey!
Thank you for joining us. We have a lot on board today. We're going to talk about our favorite Marvel scenes inspired by a really cool thing that's been going on YouTube that you might have seen from a lot of YouTubers. We got a little news roundup, some Warner news, some Comic-Con news, some D23 news, and then as always, we've got Fan Friday questions, some good ones, talking about budgets and Oscars and TV, all kinds of fun stuff. But let's start with if you haven't seen, there's this thing that was started by a channel, Nando V Movies, that a lot of other channels, our friend Mr. Sunday Movies, Take Screen Prism, Captain Midnight, all released videos as part of the series called One Marvelous Scene. They're video essays that are basically a different YouTuber or a channel will pick their favorite scene in the MCU, and they do a breakdown, the video essay, basically just celebrating different scenes from different movies that they like. It started out as 10 YouTube creators that came together to do it, but there's a playlist now that started, and other channels have started doing them, big channels, small channels. Really cool, just cool fans being fans, and I watched a couple of them, and it's not all the same scene, which is great. It seems like everybody just about has picked a different scene, breaking down different parts of the MCU. Some are funny scenes, some are action scenes. So if you haven't seen the One Marvelous Scene playlist, there's a link in the description below. You can check that out. But it got us thinking about our favorite scenes. And, while this is not part of the playlist, it's something that we thought would be really fun, kind of inspired by that. So all of us picked a couple of our favorites that we can just go through and run down, and maybe some of them might be in that playlist if people want to check out more. But Vanessa, let's start with you. What's one of your favorites?
One of my absolute favorites. It was the first one that came to mind because I wanted something that had the heart of it all that I really loved, and that was Yondus Funeral from Guardians 2.
Yeah.
Who already everyone's like a little misty. Because this was a character that I had grown to love over the course of 2 movies, but also this ties together 2 plot lines that resonated with me. Because one of the things I really love about the MCU is that I feel like it's kind of grown with me, almost. And this is 2 plot lines of 2 characters trying to figure out who they are and who they've been. And we have Peter wrapping up, who am I? Because he's been trying to figure out who his father is this entire time. But the one that resonates with me the most is Rocket and Yondu, because they've been thinking for an entire movie about the impact that they've left on the world and who they are to their families, their adopted families, and what kind of people have they been, and can they come back from their actions and be good people. And this is a definitive, bright, sparkly, yes, you can come back from your mistakes and you can redeem yourself and you can step up to be the person that your family needs you to be. And I feel like it's such a beautiful encapsulation of a character's story coming full circle and then somebody else getting another start into being a better person. Raccoon. So... Yondus Funeral.
Yeah,
and I love that at the end. Like, we were just talking about this the other day. Like, it's the most somber ending to a movie like I can recall, of just like the fact that you have this raccoon with a single tear and somehow not only do you just buy it, but it crushes you.
Yeah.
Like, that is an achievement in itself in that scene.
Absolutely.
Billy, is there the one that you picked that you want to point out?
The two that I picked, I'm going to start with the first one because I feel like they're mirror scenes. So the first is probably it's from my favorite Marvel movie, which is Captain America: Civil War. But it's that whole scene. I think where Marvel succeeds, where they don't get enough credit. Yes, they do spectacle really great, but we care about those characters first and foremost.
Yeah.
And I think this was the moment where everything really changed for me in the MCU, which is where we already knew that they didn't agree on the Sokovia Accords, but that now there's been this incident, and they're kind of at the headquarters. And Steve and Tony just take this minute to actually talk one-on-one, and Cap gets this close to signing it. And I think, first of all, this scene does such an amazing job of exposition, because sometimes it just feels very clunky, but you get to know everything that's been going on in Tony's head for the past couple of years in a very realistic way, catching up with the friend. It's the easiest way to do it. I also think that for a long time, Robert Downey Jr., it's like, quip, action scene, quip, action scene. But then they're like, hey, dude, you want to act in a scene? And he's like, hell yeah, I want to act in a scene. And you understand both of their points so perfectly in this scene that depending on what mood I'm in, where I'm at, sometimes I watch this movie and this scene in particular, and I'm like, yeah, I agree with Tony, or yeah, I agree with Cap.
Yeah.
But he gets so freaking close, and then over Wanda, I love when he's just like, give me a break, man. She's not even just a normal citizen. She, first of all, is she doesn't have any sort of visa or anything. And second, she's a weapon of mass destruction. I'm doing the best I can. And I just loved that moment where it's just he just finally breaks, and Cap's just like, I won't do it.
Yeah.
That I think is where, for me, the MCU just, it's that's the point of no return.
Yeah.
Ed, what you got?
Well, I think I put a bunch of stuff in the email. So what asset you got queued up, JT? You got Queens queued up? Yeah. All right. Anyway,
I love sometimes you hear JT noise
I love that. But to me, I mean, there are scenes that are supposed to catch us off guard, things that we couldn't have foreseen. And then there's some of these straight up obligatory ass scenes that they had to do. And doing a great job on an obligatory ass scene, to me, is the best. And when you know Spider-Man's going to be in Civil War, you know they're going to introduce him, how do they do it? They could have did it so many different ways. They could have did it in ways that wouldn't be satisfying to somebody who'd never heard of Spider-Man ever before, who I don't know who that person is. He's probably wearing a Buffalo Bills Super Bowl t-shirt on or something.
Drinking his Mountain Dew, eating his Cool Ranch Doritos, with his Xbox body wash.
I'm making reference to the fact that they send the losing person's Super Bowl memorabilia to far off reaches. Anyway, the bottom line is, that scene, you have to introduce Spider-Man. You know he's going to be in the movie. RDJ is there to do his thing, shepherd it through. But he does so much more than that. It's a wonderful scene. It's even blocked by RDJ, as famously, the Russos talked about. RDJ was telling Tom to move over a little bit, dude, in the scene while he's acting. And it's even more organic because it's this great large star figure telling a youngster to move, to make room for me. I'm going to school you on this stuff. Well, here's where your costume is. He's got it all doped out. He knows everything, but it's still emotional because you still get the Uncle Ben jazz without saying the Uncle Ben stuff. Oh, wonderful. And there's even a little video of Spider-Man's abilities. If you're some grandma who wants to know why this teenager's important to RDJ, then you can watch the cell phone video and watch him catch a car against a bus. A nice little Spider-Man feat to let you know that this dude could be an integral part of this new fight scene that we're about to see in 20 minutes. Beautiful, obligatory ass scene.
I love it. Beautiful obligatory scene. You should start like a podcast. Beautiful obligation, an Greer podcast. The first one I picked is and I like that looking at these, there's a couple of action scenes, but I think we all chose to highlight some of the not smaller, but less ostentatious moments. And mine was a moment from Black Panther. And it's where I think that Killmonger was in the movie before this moment, but this was the moment where he really, I think, for just as a performance and as a villain, revealed himself. The scene where they bring him into the throne room, and it's the hey auntie, that moment, and just, but also the fact that what I love about that movie and what I love about him as a villain is, as a hero, and in the MCU, so many of the villains, it's there's no gray area. Like Darren Cross and Ant-Man.
Yeah, sure.
Darren Cross wants to be a crazy world murdering Yellow Jacket and sell it to Hydra, and Ant-Man doesn't want to do that. Or Ultron, while the creation of Ultron is like a weird gray area, like Ultron wants to destroy the world, and the Avengers are going to stop him. I don't think there's anything more terrifying to a hero than when a villain comes in and says something, and you have to go like, shit, they're right. And the idea, like, what I love about that scene is when he comes in and he starts off with the line of just like, it's just like, I'm worried about my people, and he says like, life started in Africa, aren't all people your people? And then they're like, well, but I'm worried about Wakanda. And then he says, I found my dad with Panther claws in his chest, like, you're the son of a murderer. And that idea of just like, number one, he has a right to be there. Number two, he makes a very good point. Number three, you have to fight him. It was the beginning of that dynamic, which is my favorite thing about that movie, the dynamic between the hero and the villain, which was that it wasn't this thing of just like, I'm going to destroy the world because I'm evil, and I'm going to save it because I'm the hero. It was this thing of like, the good guys are dirty and the bad guys are clean in a weird way, like this weird mix, this gray area, and that's what I love. But I just love Michael B. Jordan saying, "Hey, auntie," like that's so good.
Well, and anything that points out the fact that 9 times out of 10 the hero is fighting to preserve the status quo.
Yeah.
That's just awesome, because like a lot of times the status quo is whack.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not cool to put the flag back on top of the White House. You know what I mean? Sometimes you need to leave it in rubble because the dude's a jerk.
Gotta think about some stuff.
Yeah, you gotta think about some stuff.
I think that's what makes Black Panther so interesting, is that, like you said, a lot of times the hero has to stop the villain from implementing their ideology, but Black Panther, or T'Challa, ends up implementing some of the ideas that Killmonger brought, which was to expand and bring what Wakanda had out to the world, which is like, I just can't think of another movie where the hero's like, well, the villain wasn't totally wrong.
Yeah.
Let's see how we can,
exactly. Like, his methods were poor, but the thesis was somewhat strong. That's my favorite. I like that about the movie, and that scene is just like the performance and everything. I love that scene.
Yeah.
I always look forward to that scene when I watch the movie. All right, Vanessa, what's another one that you had on your list?
Gave you a little heart. I wanted to put some spectacle into it, but I love a contained spectacle, which is why I picked the Winter Soldier elevator fight scene. I can't watch that scene without feeling like I gotta kick some stuff over. You know, like when you're a little kid and you like saw a blockbuster movie and you run out and you're just like air punching because you don't know what to do with your energy. That's what that scene does to me. The second he says the words, "Would anybody like to get out?" It's like, oh, it's gonna happen. And it's so expertly choreographed in such a small place. And I love, love, love the way they shoot that scene, because it's shot in a way that makes sense to the eye, where at no point you're dizzied or missing out on any of the action. It's shot so well that you're in every single moment of that fight choreography. Not a single shot or moment is wasted. It's one of my favorite fight scenes in maybe the whole MCU. But yeah, the second, would anybody like to get out? It's like, oh, they don't know what they did to themselves.
I love that. The fighting style in general, I remember watching the movie at the very beginning when he lands on the boat and he kicks the guy and he just flies off the boat. I remember watching the movie, I was like, oh, this is going to be different.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I like this.
Yeah, no, I've classically said, if the Captain America from Captain America First Avengers showed up in this movie, he would die.
Yeah.
He would die. The arduous nature of what's going on and the choreography that the villains are doing would kill that previous Captain America.
This is a different man.
Yeah, he's been training.
This is a man that's not only been training, but this is a dude who's starting to realize that maybe the world that he knows isn't what it actually is.
Right.
And he's approaching it like that.
Ed, let's stay on the Winter Soldier train, because I think you had another one from that movie that you liked.
Well, I did. I was talking about the opening. My third thing was the opening boat scene. But I think JT should have my favorite scene, which is in Civil War. They're on the way to the Hooskow. Do you have any of that, JT?
You didn't make the rundown, sorry.
Whatever. Damn it. So let me paint the picture, folks. I don't have assets. No, but here's the thing. Right after Black Panther and Steve Rogers and Bucky have that titanic fight in Civil War, and they're racing, running faster than cars through the tunnel, and they're just showing the best of their abilities. Even when T'Challa lands and it makes no sound. Everyone else lands and makes some sort of scuffling sound. He lands, there's no sound because the vibranium absorbed it, and he's the cat. You know, all that jazz, right? And so after that fight, they're all busted, sitting in the car, going to jail, and they're just having conversation, making conversation, and Falcon goes, "So you like cats?" And it's the funniest damn thing in the world. It's the funniest thing in the world. You like cats? And then Steve's like, dude, leave him alone, bro. He just whooped our asses. So just leave him alone. Don't be saying stuff. And then when Black Panther has the opportunity to say, blah blah blah, as warrior and king, how long do you think you can keep your friend safe from me? How long do you think you can protect him from me? And that's just so. It's like. He's almost becomes like a monster, like a righteous monster. He's the Killmonger of that movie. Yeah. He has been wronged, and he's going to smack up the status quo to get justice. And I really love that scene in particular. It's a nice little small scene. It wouldn't have been better with an asset.
And what's great about that too, is like they're clearly in custody, and yet Black Panther is still the biggest threat. Like, how long do you really think any of this matters to me? Like,
first of all, I'm rich. I'm gonna get bailed out before both of y'all.
Yeah.
You know?
There's one that I really like, which comes in Infinity War. Again, it's a smaller scene, but it's one that I think. The good thing about good sequels, is that they make their preceding movies better in retrospect. Mm-hmm. This is a movie that I think completely sets up Thor's entire arc in Endgame, in Infinity War. But even in a vacuum, I think it's a great scene, which is the scene between him and Rocket on the ship, where they have basically a heart-to-heart. And it's the only time, because Thor's had a weird franchise.
Yeah.
He had the original movie, and then Thor: The Dark World, which was kind of a weird, almost one-off in the sense that like it's not like either of the other two. And then Thor: Ragnarok, which is a complete reinvention and a huge burst of energy. But there's never like Captain America, particularly, and Iron Man. Like their movies, their sequels was about like their character growth, and you would see the effect of the previous movie on their character. And Thor never really had that.
Yeah.
And I love that Infinity War took a second to have him sit down and just reflect on what's happened to him through 3 movies, and this is and I love it. The thing he lays out is just like, I'm 1,500 years old. I've been in every time I've been in a fight with somebody who wanted to kill me, and at the end of that fight, I was the one that was left standing. But but at the same time, I lost my father, I lost my mother, I lost my brother. He just lost Heimdall. He thinks he just lost he just lost his home. He thinks he's just lost everybody, all the Asgardians, and when he says, I got nothing left to lose. So it's this idea, it's setting up this version of Thor where if he doesn't win, which he doesn't, he's done.
Yeah.
I give up, which it completely feeds into Endgame, where essentially he kind of achieves what he thinks he needs to achieve, but he's already lost. Even if he, at the beginning of the movie, like they technically do what they want to do, but it doesn't matter. It's completely empty because he lost, and it was his fault. But I just love when a big movie like that, and that's what I think separates not great blockbusters from really good blockbusters, which is they have the same sense of scale, but they're not afraid to shut up. Or to shut the scale down for like 5 minutes and actually do some talking and character work and development and make you want to care. And I just love that scene. And then it's that great mix of Marvel stuff, which is like, it's a very emotional scene.
Yeah.
If you people want to say Chris Hemsworth can't act, watch that scene. Or that he's just a comedy guy or whatever. But it's capped off with a great joke, which is like, I've got nothing left to lose. And he walks away, and Rocket's just like, I got a lot to lose.
It's great because it shows too, like, especially like, it makes way more sense for Endgame. It's like you see in this moment how Thor kind of compartmentalizes his pain because it's like, I'll put it away because I have a mission. So when you get to Endgame and there's no missions left, it's like all you have to do is wallow in the horribleness that you've just laid out that you've been denying for 4+ movies.
And really for hundreds of years.
Thousands
of years, Billy, I think the last one we're going to point out specifically, but it's also Endgame related.
Sure, yeah. So, like I said, my first one was, like a mirror to this one where it was, Tony was asking Steve for help for the betterment of everyone by signing this. And now they've lost after Infinity War, and Cap is asking Tony for help to defeat Thanos. Like, hey, what did you learn on that fight? And it's right after, Tony's come back from space and he's kind of shriveled up. I think they CGI'd, made him look like he hadn't eaten in a month. And they subvert, at least for me, the expectations of just like this. I was expecting them to be like, all right, let's put our differences aside. Obviously, there's something bigger here. And they went with the more realistic choice, at least for Tony. Again, like letting Robert Downey Jr. have that moment of just like, there's nothing. I told you this is what was going to happen. And I think, while everyone, remembers that moment where he rips the thing out of his chest, for me, I think the part that really just was like, whoa, is when he gets in Cap's face. He's like, I have no info, nothing, no trust, liar. Because I think of everything that you could call Captain America, I think calling him a liar and saying like you did not live up to the mission, I don't think that there's anything more that you could put on Steve to like. There's no other insult. There's no other put down. There's nothing like no other shame than like I let you lead this team. I've said this whole time. You didn't listen to me. I trusted you. You broke my trust. You broke us. Like that scene to me again is just like when you let those two like Evans and Downey, they had such chemistry, and when you let them just be those characters and live in that moment, like it's incredible. Like that to me was like, I don't know what I'm in for the next 2.5 hours.
And I love that it sort of ties a little bit back to the Black Panther thing, which is like the thing that makes a lot of these movies interesting is that you allow your heroes to be wrong.
Right.
And when you look back on it now, you think that that's the noble thing to say. Like it sounds like a very powerful hero thing to say way back when Tony said, well, what if the worst does happen? What if we lose? And then Cap says, then we'll lose together too.
Right.
Like that sounds like a very noble thing, but then staring that in the face and realizing like that's kind of a foolhardy thing to say because like now it happened, and it's not just it's the thing of just like kind of calling him on his BS, which is like, oh yeah, you said we'll lose together too. Well, guess what? We did. Right. Now what? Hero?
Yeah.
Right.
I love that scene.
When he tells him when he grabs the thing off his chest and he gives it to him, he goes, "Now you take that and you go hide."
Yeah.
Oh, that's a brutal thing to say to a soldier, a super soldier.
Go hide. Oof.
And like, yeah, he had his signature quip for Rocket, but that wasn't like a 2-minute monologue of calling everyone names or everything. I love that he goes to Captain Marvel. It's like, you're new blood. We need someone with new ideas, like another captain essentially, because Rogers can't do it because he whiffed this so hard. Like, that's rough, man. Like, it almost makes me think like, were they patched up enough by the end? Like, are you guys good? Are you sure? Because you're not gonna see each other again. Yeah. Great stuff.
Great stuff. We could much like Captain America. We could do this all day, but there's a lot of good scenes. So yeah, check out that playlist, One Marvelous Scene on YouTube. Lots of really cool work from a lot of YouTubers and movie channels, big and small, breaking down the MCU, and it's sort of this extended, what really kind of has been a recap from a lot of people since Endgame came out. Of just even though Spider-Man: Far From Home's coming out and everything else,
seeing what it meant to a lot of people through their particular prism, what these things meant to everybody. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. We're Fandom Entertainment. You know that by now. This is Screen Junkies Universe, but we are Fandom Entertainment. You can like and subscribe, hit the bell to get notifications. That's okay, Ryan. Don't worry about it. It's Friday. It's casual Friday. That's fine.
It's right there. No.
Like and subscribe to get. We do this show every day, every morning during the week. We have movie reviews. We've got charting. We've got video. We've got just about anything that you would want here on the channel. You can also check out some great stuff on fandom.com. We have a fantastic editorial team that's always writing articles, doing interviews, all that kind of stuff. You can check that out. Always something fun going up there. So thank you for watching and thank you for joining us. Let's move on to the news roundup. It sounded like I was wrapping up the show, but I'm not. Let's go on to the news roundup.
Oh, wait, there's more.
There's more. Yesterday and really for the last several months, we've been talking about Warner Media. They are the next big streaming service to hit the market. We've talked about, is DC Universe going to be folded into it? Are they not? What's going to be included? Well, the Wall Street Journal has reported with some information saying that they believe, through their reporting, that it is likely that the Warner Media streaming service will cost somewhere in the range of $16 to $17 a month, including HBO and Cinemax movies and series. That is a high price point. That's more than Netflix. That's more than Hulu. That's more than twice as much as Disney Plus, which will be about $7 a month. So if this reporting is accurate, if these prices do hold, Warner Media would have the most expensive potentially streaming service out of all of them. There was no mention in that reporting of DC Universe and whether that would be included, the content would be included. That HBO Now, though, currently costs $15 a month. So assuming that they would include HBO Now in it, I think the question then becomes, does that mitigate the cost a little bit because they're offering something that their customers already have at a similar price but with more content? However, in the broader scale, they are much more expensive, or at least marginally more expensive than some of their competitors. What do you guys think?
I think if they had rolled this out before this last season of Game of Thrones, this might have been a little bit more in their advantage. It's a risky strategy, but if you say like, oh, Warner Brothers is going to be 17, you're like, get out of here. Yeah. But it includes HBO, you're like, wait a second. That's actually not... I've had this conversation with 3 people, and as soon as you add the HBO caveat, they're like, oh, wait, that's actually not a bad deal. So it's marketing. Yeah. If you can educate people like that fact, like, hey, you already have HBO Now, and it's $15. $2 extra, look at all the stuff. Like, that's going to be their hurdle. Because if you just throw Warner Media, we got a ton of stuff, and it's $17, not interested.
Yeah. Like, and as a consumer, that's how I've made a lot of my choices as well. Because in my head, I'm like, all right, $2 more for essentially what is already the HBO service that I have, plus more content. Because that's essentially why I subscribed to VRV. Because it was 2 things that I already had, Shudder and Crunchyroll, plus additional things for not much more than I was paying for both of them. So when the marketing directs, you already have this plus more, it spoon feeds to me, the mushy brain, tired at the end of the day consumer. Cool, you did all the math for me, I want it.
Yeah. What do you think, Ed?
Well, and also you get Skinamax too. Don't
tight.
Don't leave them out.
Oh man,
Has it been Skinamax? Has it been
No,
Skinamax in a while?
It isn't.
Yeah.
It's just the coolest way to say Skinamax.
just VHSs that I have in my house.
Gotta put some top spin on this stuff.
That's fair. That's fair.
Marketing,
Yeah.
baby.
You're competing against the mouse.
These guys are literally competing against the Mouse Gang, baby. And they got some big guns. They got Skinamax with them.
Yeah.
They got H-Book. They got all these guys. They're pounding their fists like Burt Ward in the background, ready to fight the Mouse Gang, baby. Gonna put them in the trap. Okay. But yeah, so I'm a fan of. I'm also, I don't know. One thing I'm bemoaning already, though, and people are going to say that I'm making this up, but there are going to be some edgelords who go like, yeah, finally, my sword in the battle against Disney. I'm like, just watch Batman and shut up. Yeah. Just watch Batman fight the turtles and shut up.
I mean, that's like just the fan tribalism.
Yeah.
Like there's just no way around it at this point. But it's like, all right, hey, look, I'd tell you right now, Warner's doesn't give an F. If they're getting your $17 a month, you can go be part of whatever tribe.
Yeah.
But
nobody wants Faithful. But they definitely want part of the market share that goes, bring it all home to me.
but I think you're right. I think this could work if their strategy is, before we start, you already have this.
Yep.
You already bought it. For a couple extra more, you can get
Here's the more
all
stuff.
this. But they, as far as I know, and maybe you guys have talked about this, and here's more, I don't know what that is, but that's got to be substantial.
They recently, last year, I think, there was a story about the fact that the entire I believe it was Rat Pack library was up for grabs, which is all of the DC movies.
Yeah.
It was a big, it was a huge library of Warner movies that were up for auction for who would get the rights. The Brett Ratner's company.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was thinking, I was like, I know, Sinatra,
sorry.
and then made like Ocean's 11. Did they make more than
Like
that?
all of like the movies that that they were involved
God.
with. A
Yeah.
lot of the recent big blockbuster
Sure,
Warner movies
yeah.
were up for auction. It was a big library, and the bidding went up huge. But Warner at the very end, because they had the right of this, came in and topped all the bids, and basically kept those movies. So I think that's probably a good bet that they're going to be featuring a lot of their movies.
Was that like a publicity stunt though? Like, hey, look at all these people who won our movies. No, these are our movies. You scrubs. These are our movies. Put them back in the case, Phyllis.
I think it's potential that they probably. I love the personas that you give to different studios. I think maybe there's the potential that the bids could be so high that maybe somebody outbid them to the point that they're like, "You want to pay $1 billion? Sure, we'll take them." Friends. Something that's probably, I think, very likely to become an exclusive to the Warner Media streaming service, going away from Netflix.
Maybe this is a boring conversation, but like, is it? Do they have they talked about any safeguards for like? Okay, like my girl, she's one of these people who loves cable. Like she's just well, the last one. She's got a vitriola machine, drinking Tang, and watching cable. You know what I mean? She's gonna be one of the last ones.
What drinks do you like, Ed? Every insult you have is beverage related. What do you drink?
I just imagine him hatefully drinking milk at home.
Screw you, Capri Sun.
I'm lactose intolerant. That's the only thing. Anyway,
Sunny D, baby.
Oh, dude, Sunny D. They use Sunny D to clean off ducts after oil spills. Anyway.
What are you, like purple stuff? Like, what is it?
I'm trying to. Yes, it gives me my special powers. Okay. All I'm saying is, what was I talking about?
Clee is the last one out of cable.
She's the last person on cable. So I'm just saying, to entice somebody like her, she's not gonna go. I'm gonna pay $17 extra after I already have HBO.
Yeah.
Will they go like, okay, if you already have these services, then we'll find some prorated situation that give you access to ours. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because there are people like that who are still like, I'm not gonna worry about how to bundle this and bundle that. I'm gonna go do X, Y, and Z with my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So cord cutting, I gotta say, it's more arduous than people think, especially when you like a bunch of squirrely little stuff. Like when your Venn diagram is weird. My girl likes cooking shows, competition reality, Japanese stuff, and all the major movie channels. She wants all that jazz in one package.
And you're a sports guy.
Yeah, and I'm a
Yeah.
sports guy.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know what I mean? So all I'm saying is if they had some prorated way for people who already subscribe to these other services that are quite popular still, you could jump on with a prorated situation. That would be slick.
Yeah.
I mean,
But I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, I mean, like you see that sometimes where it's like, you know, if you subscribe to like Comcast or something, then like you can also log into like Comcast Online and have streaming channels.
Yeah.
Someone's going to do it. I think it might be Amazon. Someone is going to not so subtly just remake cable and be like, hey, you want all these different services? Just subscribe to us and we'll subscribe all of these things for you. Because Amazon kind of does that already with like, you can add Cinemax to your Prime or
Star.
HBO
Yeah,
to your
we did
Prime.
that with Showtime
Right,
for
yeah.
a amount of time where it was either if you already had Showtime, you could just log in through Hulu and it would lump it into the actual like UI when you opened up the interface,
Right.
or you can add it for an additional amount a month.
Yeah, I mean that's what's going to happen. We're
Yeah.
just remaking cable slower than I thought.
We are.
would.
We're basically, we mentioned this yesterday. We're essentially slowly rebuilding a more complicated version of cable.
No, dude, you know what cable is? Cable is like Ultron. Every time you think you beat Ultron or Brainiac, whatever your flavor,
Yep.
every time you think you destroyed it, it just comes back, hey, what's up? I got 57 arms now. It's like, oh, God.
Well, because nobody wants to share. Like that's like the game
Yeah.
changer was the days when all of the studios and networks leased all of their stuff to Netflix, and it was like, oh my God, there's
all in
one
one
place
place.
where everything is, and then everyone was just like, well, wait, no, why is Netflix Netflix get all the money, and so I'm going to build my own. And so then
Yeah.
they take everything away from Netflix and build their own thing. But then well, this is just cable. This is just 14 different places to get what I want, but it's maybe more expensive.
Yeah.
And it's very odd. Last question, because we talked about Swamp Thing yesterday, DC Universe. I think the way that it works in this town is I think we all have at least one friend that works for DC Universe, so it's hard to speculate about that not being there. But do you think that DC Universe is at a price point? I'm not sure what the price. Ryan, can you look up what the DC Universe price point? I think it's around 12 a month or something.
I don't know.
That.
I paid for mine for a year, but I think it's like $10 a month.
$10 a month,
or something like that.
Do you think do you think that there's a world where Warner keeps two separate streaming platforms at those price points, or do you think that, and maybe that means that no meaningful change comes to DC Universe, that they just roll in whatever they're doing, but do you think that DC Universe gets absorbed once Warner launches what they've got?
I think it's their only hope at even trying to succeed with that price point. I think if they're trying to pitch a $16 to $17 price point and they're not including DC Universe, that's... What was it? 8 monthly?
8 monthly. Okay, so
yeah, that's an $8 a
expensive
month
then.
service. That's something that essentially that they would be able to roll into their service. That in my head, I'm like, all right, now that is a $10 price point that I am getting ahead of and have rolled into my service. I think if it's not rolled in, they're shooting themselves in the foot with a $16 to $17 price point.
The DC Universe is someone who uses it it is the thing that's just with the Warner stuff, it's all very general audience. Where DC, it's so niche. It really is. And when you look at the app, if you're just kind of like a general consumer, it's very manic because it's trying to accomplish two different things. It wants to be, an OTT, but it also wants to be a comicsology. And to me, I think the comics aspect is the reason why I keep it. I just don't have the time to watch 100 million different shows, but for a rental service of comics, that's really cool. But is that enough for everybody? Probably not. I don't know. So it just wouldn't make sense to. I just don't think it would make business sense to keep it going. I don't know. It just seems like we're talking about so many streaming services, and DC Universe we don't talk about as much. Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, but they can't be doing gangbusters, or else they'd be in our face about it all the time, wouldn't they? Netflix when they do those press releases, we don't do ratings, but if we did, here's
This would be
right.
killing it.
Here's how many box office dollars we would have earned this weekend.
Yeah, I personally think, I think they should all be together. But you know what? As a crusader of things that will never happen and ideas that can never be implemented, I feel as though that's my job. Yeah. And one thing we should do is any company like DC or Marvel that has an actual printed product that they sell along with these other wares, make a reader that even works with a TV, something simple. Make a reader, because it makes your library of characters that much more valuable. And when you start to drop these, Tigra movies and all this jazz, and then Catman and Catmandu as, new DC movies 10 years down the line, people will be like, oh yeah, Catman versus Lady Shiva, and be up for it. Like we were up for a freaking tree and a raccoon.
Are you saying to be able to read it on your TV?
Yeah, that's...
DC's app can do that.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right,
Everybody who has printed material, I'm just saying, should do that, because people... Comic book shops are dying.
Yeah.
While we're trumpeting about everybody got a Captain America shirt on, walking past the comic book shop to go eat some popcorn somewhere in the dark.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? To look at the source material. Look at why we have these things.
Yeah, we're not. I've actually been on this conversation for a bit.
Drinking your Mr. Pibb in a closet somewhere.
You got something against Mr. Pibb?
No, I love Mr. I'm the weird soda guy. I like Mr. Pibb. I like Barks root beer. Yes. I like anything with vanilla. Aged vanilla in anything. That's my jam. Nice. Oh, also, I'm a cream soda person to a certain degree.
Oh, yeah. So, depending on the cream soda.
Yeah.
Mix it with a little orange Fanta and get yourself a creamsicle.
To a certain degree, seasonal? Or, what is a certain degree?
Pumpkin spice. But yeah, what I'm saying.
Oh, no. I was just on the comic books are dying thing. That's something I've been talking about as of lately, where most a lot of apps that include a reader are not the easiest interface in the world. Also, and maybe an unpopular opinion, they don't have enough children's content, which is where we need to be starting for making a lifelong subscriber, a lifelong consumer of comic books and printed media. And we're not directing enough at them. We're not making it accessible enough to them. And we were all 13-year-old kids that walked into a comic book shop at one point, and that's where we got started, and that's how we became a lifelong consumer. And we have forgotten that market when it comes to creating these new services.
Yep.
Because they're catering to the 30-plus-year-olds like us that scream every time the status quo is changed. Right?
Every issue is someone's first issue.
Well, speaking of comic books and potential decline, Comic-Con. Warner Brothers.
Ow.
It's true. Warner Brothers announced. Well, they didn't quite announce. It was more just sort of publicized yesterday that they will be doing a special event at Scare Diego around It Chapter 2, but that will be the extent of their panel presence at Comic-Con, other than the big booths and stuff that they usually have. They will have no official Hall H panel this year, meaning no big panel for Joker, Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman 1984, Matt Reeves' Batman movie. They have a lot of big projects coming up, and Warner Brothers is the one studio that, at least in my years of going to Comic-Con, is Disney comes and goes, Marvel comes and goes, Star Wars comes and goes.
Always been there.
Warner Brothers always has and the last couple years has always had the big Hall H panel, the one that everyone wants to get into, big announcements. They always have the wraparound screen. They brought out Grindelwald, Johnny Depp last year. They did on stage. Aquaman was a big thing last year. Like, they always use Comic-Con as their place to roll out big previews of their stuff. Not this year. We'll not be doing a Hall H panel. Now the eyes turn to Disney, Marvel, Star Wars. No word on if Marvel's going to be doing anything at Comic-Con. However, yesterday Disney announced that there will be a presence for all of their properties at the D23 Expo in August. If you don't know what D23 is, it's Disney's big fan event, but it's basically Disney Con. But it's where they make a lot of big announcements. It happens in Orange County every year. Although is it in Orange County this year? Sometimes they do it in LA. Sometimes I think it's in Anaheim this year.
Yeah, I grew up in Anaheim, right down the street from the convention center in Disneyland. So this was like, oh man, if you made any kind of like money versus tips, this was our Super Bowl.
It's certainly Super Bowl for Disney fans. There will be a Disney Plus presentation on the first day of the expo with new info and footage from things like The Mandalorian. I'm sure you'll see perhaps some stuff from the Marvel series that are coming. Saturday in August, I believe it's August 24th or 23rd, is the big movie day. Lucasfilm, Marvel Studios, Disney has a panel that's all of their major theatrical presentations will be coming on that day. So there is a serious question now. Will Disney save all of their big announcements for their own convention that happens in August? Are they still going to try to do something? Because we could now potentially be looking at a Comic-Con with no Hall H presence from any of the big major players, potentially not Marvel, definitely not Warner Brothers, maybe not Star Wars. What do you think? What does this mean for Comic-Con? What does this mean for the concept of it being the place to take your things if you want to really get the buzz going about your projects?
I never, and there obviously are smarter people out there than me, but I never understood from a marketing perspective of just spending, it's expensive to put your marketing dollars going towards like a Hall H panel. It's expensive. And I never understood why you would mark up this couple $1 million expense to go all out for an audience that you've already got. Like those 3, 4, 5, whatever thousand people that are in that room, like those aren't the ones that you need to really be bending over backwards to get to come see your movie. And I feel like you get these big things and big footage, and people, a couple years ago were talking like, oh man, like Justice League looks awesome, Blade Runner looks amazing, and then no one goes to actually go see the movies. So it's like these rooms, like, are they starting to realize like maybe it doesn't matter if we already have these people?
I think it's hit or miss though. Like Mad Max Fury Road is a movie I think that benefited humongously from Comic-Con
Yeah.
because people saw that trailer and they lost their mind.
Yeah.
Sure, but you're talking about a property that had A, been dormant, and B, wasn't something that was like a cultural icon like a Batman or something. So
Yeah.
I'm saying like it makes more sense to me that they're coming with It Chapter 2, which is something that's like we can really get the buzz going for this because not like everyone is going to be talking about Star Wars. Everyone is talking about Marvel. Whereas like the other stuff, it's like you're either at this point like you're going to go see Batman and Joker or you're not. Like
Yeah.
I don't think showing 5 minutes of footage is going to change whether in October you're going to see Joker or not.
Yeah, I think there's like a 6-7 year block where studios put a very, very big price tag on hype, and it does work. I think when there's a moment of like not just the exclusivity of it, but watching other people reacting to this thing before you, it makes you need it more. Where it's, what are these people tweeting about? What are these 3,000 people that are talking about this insane thing that they saw? I have to see it too. And it builds that hype. But I think studios put more of an emphasis on it in terms of like what it actually does,
Right.
and kind of snowballed for a bit. What I'm hoping this is, I doubt this is going to be, but what I'm hoping this is that maybe we'll get a Comic-Con that'll get a little bit closer to its original roots and less of just kind of a here's what's coming up and more of like a showcase.
Sure.
That's what I'm hoping for. That's what I doubt it's going to be. I think this is just keeping things exclusive to their own individual events.
Like, remind me, because you're the box office guy, how did Crimes of Grindelwald do at the box office?
Not great.
So, like,
but that was largely driven by a very lackluster response from
Right.
both from fans and critics.
But I just wonder, it's like at this point, would they have been like, man, maybe we shouldn't have spent all that money at, because it's like for every Mad Max, there's also a Snakes on the Plane where they thought they had like
or
a
Scott
huge-
Pilgrim.
thing.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So it just seems like a gamble that I wouldn't take. But.
Yeah, I guess the question is where are they allocating their resources? Because I agree. Like, I think there's something to getting your product. Like, long before I ever went to Comic-Con, the first time I heard about Iron Man, I think maybe the first time I heard about Comic-Con, was the write-ups on different websites that said like, Jon Favreau brought footage from Iron Man to Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. The audience chanted to play it again, and they played it again. Like, this movie is going to be amazing. And this is a year before it came out. But I think part of it, too, is like that industry of if we do a big thing at Comic-Con and the 5 websites that cover this thing are going to write about it is gone.
Yeah.
Or has Gremlined, and there are now 5,000 of those sites.
Yep.
So, yeah, I guess... I don't know. I think it's a good question, but I don't know if there's a good answer to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think Warner Brothers is in the lab with a pen and a pad, trying to figure out how to do some new marketing. Like, all right, eyelid ads, go Johnson. Just figure out, how to do something different. That because I agree with Billy and the panel at large that it doesn't seem cost effective anymore for things that are already cultural touchstones. Again, something that you're trying to debut. It's almost like how Spago's is over. Right, as like a super cool restaurant to go to. But if some old ass Hollywood producer wants to take you to Spago, you're gonna go.
Yeah.
Because you getting seen in Spago means way more than Matthew McConaughey getting seen in Spago. They think something wrong with him. They think, wait, what's up with Billy? He's in Spago. You know what I mean? So I think that Hall H is now Spago. And you need to be somebody who it's important. It's important for you to be seen there because you ain't never been seen nowhere like that before. It's important for you to be at Spago.
And I think the difference between like a San Diego and a D23 is Disney makes no money if you wait all night to go see footage in Hall H of their stuff. But if you're gonna pay for a Disney ticket for a Disney con to go see that footage, that's a money maker.
Yeah.
You're not,
True.
So that's why it's like,
Nice.
why would you not do your own thing, especially if you have the level of IPs that Disney has.
Exactly.
Well, you never know. Marvel Studios could snap up a nice spot at Hall H and roll out some stuff. They could wait. I mean, Marvel's weird because they've just done stuff on their own. Like, I remember that when they announced Civil War, like, that was just Kevin Feige on, like, March or April. It's just like,
This is happening.
I'm just doing a thing. It's
Doing
just
a little thing.
in the morning, whatever.
Little
Like, they
movie.
just do what they want.
You just want to come over.
I think they know that no matter when they do it, it's gonna hit big.
Yeah.
Well, we'll find out. We'll find out more about Comic-Con. Before we go, let's answer a couple fan questions. It is Fan Friday, after all. I paused for the video.
Uncomfortable smiles.
We can never get we either talk over it or we there's an awkward
just sit
pause
there.
while we're waiting for it. There are a couple of good fan questions. We can breeze through a few of them. Sam Dean, Supernatural fan maybe? Sam Dean asks,
Winchester Brothers.
Dan briefly brought up during your discussion of the new Terminator film that Linda Hamilton should have gotten some Oscar attention for her performance in Terminator 2 Judgment Day. What other performances in blockbuster films do you think also should have been given some serious awards conversation? Anybody got one that jumps out at them? That you're thinking, yep.
Because he got a nomination, but I feel like, this was so long ago, but I think about it constantly in terms of like, how did he not sweep? And it's Bob Hoskins in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Because not only, it's like a good performance on 3 levels. It's a good performance acting against something that isn't there. It's a good performance on its own for a film noir movie. It's a phenomenal film noir performance for an era that is not in the time that it's being filmed, and it's also a deeply emotional performance. You get to see actual character growth in this person, and he's acting against a cartoon rabbit. And I know he was nominated, but most of the accolades that film received was for its animation and for the actual creation of it. But it is if you take out all of the animation, if you take out all of the zany Disney stuff, it is a phenomenal film noir performance.
Roger. Right. Yeah, he's great. I love Bob Hoskins in that movie.
Bobby Hoss.
Ed, Billy, anything jump out at you?
You know what? I think I want to start the stumping for RDJ for Endgame. Because I really don't know that it holds together what it is, even as the 22 movies, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it holds together unless we feel that righteous indignation that Billy was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
You're coming out of a spaceship that's like stopped in space. Let's not talk about why it's stopped in space. But anyway, it's stopped in space and it's so dire and it's so messed up, and he communicates that so perfectly. And he's talking to his wife through his freaking helmet cam and all that jazz. It's just, and then he comes home and he's mad at America's ass. He's mad at it. You know what I mean? We have to buy that and be into it. And we have to feel in that performance, we have to feel that Cap is like, I really did let my homie down. Like, this is really messed up. I really have to make amends. I really have to really be a hero, because I might have been falling a little bit short of that, especially compared to this guy who has put his butt on the line now 2 or 3 times at that point, and then the ultimate time later. I don't think if there's a great actor in that part, or if somebody's just phoning it in, sort of just like, yeah, I'm RDJ, here, where's my coffee? Here you go. Yeah. You know, I don't think it works as well. I think he put as the folks say, broke his foot off in this one. And I would love to see him or Josh Brolin from the last movie. I would have loved to see either one of them get noms for what they did. I would love for somebody to get a nom for a mocap performance.
Yeah.
Because that would launch us into the future.
Andy Serkis.
Yeah.
All of the Planet of the Apes. Perfect performances.
Or Lord of the Rings. I mean, Gollum is such a. If that had been a person, meaning like an actual person on set, I think it's very likely that he would have been nominated. But because it was not, then he wasn't. Toby Kebbell also, I thought, in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes
absolutely.
should have been considered, but wasn't, because it was considered not.
Every single person in mocap in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is giving you award-winning performances and giving you such pathos and agony and conflict, and they got nothing.
Well, it's the reverse of Tropic Thunder. Never go full CGI. That's what the actors are telling each other.
Anything, Billy? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna brace for impact here.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna say I really feel like he should have at least got a nom. Mark Hamill from The Last Jedi.
No. 100% agree. Okay. And we're gonna get this together. We're drowning together. We're bracing for what's gonna happen to us.
Rocket and Rhodey at the bottom.
I'm ready. This is us. We are Thelma and Louise driving into a canyon right now. But I will die with you.
Look, say what you want about however you think the characterization should have been for Luke, but the characterization that was there for Luke, what Mark Hamill had to do, he had to show a man that was broken, who the last time we saw him was king of the world. Now he's a broken man, and the fact that you see him so bitter, so angry, so lost, and then at the end, Like every time I get chills when he's like, "This is just the beginning.
Oh my God.
I will not be the last Jedi." Like, see you around,
His
kid.
eyes.
That scene with Leia for the last time, I just feel like Mark Hamill runs the gamut of emotions. He goes from like outraged to hurt to overwhelmed to calm, cool, collected to finally just like giving in and letting go and becoming one with the Force. Like, it's a great performance,
Yeah.
whether you like the character or not, whatever, but like the way he delivered it was just fantastic.
Yeah, if you compare his screen time to everyone else, he has so much more growth in less time
Right.
based purely on performance.
Was it the green milk?
I love it.
Was that what may have just...
I don't know. Like,
You got a problem with milk Ed?
how you doing, green milk, Ed?
I love milk. Leave me alone.
Oh boy! All right, this is a numbers question, so you know I'm going to ask it.
Right.
Yesh asks, "What counts as a movie's budget, and why do we use it as a benchmark for success? Like how Dark Phoenix had a budget." I don't know why that's in quotation marks. That's what's cited. Dark Phoenix had a budget of $200 million, but you guys estimated $600 million. What's the point of using the budget? Okay, well, let me clear that up.
give Dan some room here. He's like, "Ugh."
It's like putting a cape on James Brown.
As far as like the numbers question, Dark Phoenix has had a budget cited at $200 million, and I think it's because I said on
Yeah.
the show, whatever day, I don't even remember. It could have been yesterday, it could have been last week. I have no clue. That $600 million would be the worldwide benchmark for it to become, and not that it doesn't make money otherwise, but to become profitable in the theatrical window, meaning it makes money on its theatrical release. You don't
Yeah.
have to worry about Blu-rays and cable, like almost every movie eventually becomes profitable, but the theatrical window is important because a lot of times contracts are written with actors as far as points and who gets the back end based on
Yeah.
how much money does it make when it comes out and when it's released. So yes, $200 million. The reason I say budget times 3, it used to be budget times 2. A lot of times now it's budget times 3 because advertising campaigns have gotten so much more expensive. Is
Yeah.
that when a movie makes $1 at the box office, that $1 doesn't go straight to the studio. A percentage of that goes to the theater,
Yep.
especially overseas. Overseas, like generally on average, a movie, if you see that a movie made $100 million domestically here in the U.S., that means about $50 million of that $100 million went back to the studio.
Yeah.
And the other half went to the theaters and went elsewhere. Overseas, it's even less. It's more like a third. In China, it's more like 25%. So when you see a movie makes a lot of money overseas, that's great, but less of that money goes back to the studios
Yeah.
here. So budget, when I say $600 million, it's because with a budget of $200 million, it would need to make about $600, and it's not perfect, about $600 million worldwide to be safely considered a hit in the
Yeah.
sense that it made money on its theatrical release, and then it's going to make money if you license it. It's going to make money Blu-rays and home video sales, and there's always, of course, extra stuff. Although there's not a lot of Dark Phoenix
Merchandising.
action figures out there.
Sure.
But so that's why the $600 million figure comes from. Is that's sort of conventional wisdom. That's why it's a lot smarter when people look at Shazam and they're like, well, Shazam only made whatever $350, $400 million compared to Aquaman, so it's a huge flop. Well, while Warner Brothers, I think, would have preferred that Shazam had done better,
Yeah.
Shazam was made for $100 million, which means it did make back 3
Yeah.
times its budget. It wasn't the kind of massive hit that Aquaman was, but based on its budget, it was still, it wasn't, it didn't seem to be losing money because
Right.
it made that back.
Yeah.
And then the question of like using it as a benchmark for success, it's financial. I mean, that's Jesse Malton asked, like, what do you care about box office? Like,
Yeah.
well, for me, it's like, I don't judge a movie based on box office. Blade Runner 2049 is one of my favorite films when it came out.
Yeah.
It lost so much money.
Yeah.
But I think that I approach things from the box office because if a movie costs a lot and doesn't make a lot of money, then that's like a mystery. It's like, okay, what happened?
Yeah.
Was the movie not very good? Was the marketing bad? Was it the wrong time of year? Or if a movie doesn't get great reviews but makes a lot of money,
Right.
like why? Why did that one? So it's not so much like I don't judge a movie's quality based on box office, but I think it's a study in human behavior, if nothing
Yeah.
else.
I
And
think. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, jumping off of that also, like, even if you look at it versus like how much money it's gonna make, me, when I look at a budget, I also look at what did you do for what amount of money, and how much did I enjoy it. And if you have a very, very expensive movie and I'm bored, how dare you? But if you make something for $6,000-$7,000 and I'm all in, that right there is an example of like, we should give you more.
Right. I think another thing to remember too is sometimes, especially if it's a big blockbuster, let's say it's a $200 million budget blockbuster, it's like, yes, that's the budget. Add on another at least $150 million to that budget for just marketing.
Yeah.
So that's where another big chunk of that money is going to have to come back. So anytime that you see one of those big, like, oh, this cost $100 million, it's like almost double
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes more.
Yeah,
honestly,
depending on
if a
the
movie costs less than
franchise,
$100 million, $100 million, and it's a big enough movie, sometimes they spend more promoting it and advertising it than they do making the movie.
Right.
If they're pushing it if they're giving it a hard promotional push.
But I agree with you. If I see a movie and it's like, I know it cost $100 million, but I'm like, how? Then you can kind of guesstimate in your head, like, well, at least 30% of that went to those two actors.
Exactly.
You know?
Versus something like, if you look at like the number 2 in terms of like how much it was made for and then what it made, Blair Witch, where it's like, all right, $200,000, most of that went to marketing. Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody accused me of bias because that I did my box office show about Godzilla and Rocketman, and Godzilla made like $49 million, and Rocketman made 25, and I talked on my show about how Godzilla was a bit of a disappointing opening, and Rocketman was a pretty good surprise. And they're like, well, Godzilla kicked Rocketman's ass. I'm like, well,
How much went in?
yes, but
Context is king.
Godzilla cost about 5 to 6 times what Rocketman cost to produce. So, not really, or 4 to 5 times. So it's all about context. So yeah.
Stupid 7-Up drinkers. And
I'll see that's
No,
You're gonna get all the lobbies against me.
box office numbers are not the only mark of success. I just like to follow them because it's just interesting to me.
Yeah.
Why do people go see things and not go see other things?
But you know what? You have explained, and I don't have anything to say besides this thing I'm about to say. You have explained why you are like you are and why you care about that in a way that is more compelling than I've ever seen. Because it is a study in human behavior. That's the smartest thing you ever said, dude. And you say a bunch of smart stuff. But, because, like, dude, sincerely, that's the only reason why the laymen these days, not even the laymen, but the guys, the nerds, even those people, the only reason why they should be interested is that. It's a detective story.
Yeah.
Every movie opening is a detective story.
Yeah.
Well, it's also, too, it's like, if anyone gives you shit, it's like, well, why do you play fantasy football or fantasy baseball? Like, you're not the team owner. You're not going to get anything from this. Sometimes
just fascinating.
Yeah, just whatever
It's
interests you.
Literally the exact same reasons you look for box office are the same reasons I dissect why a cult film became a cult film, because human behavior is fascinating.
Right.
It is. It really is. I think human behavior fascinating. I think you're fascinating. Thank you for watching the show. Not a good transition, but that's okay. Have a happy weekend. Happy Friday to everyone if you're watching, or if you're overseas and it's Friday night, go to sleep. Sorry it was over an hour long.
Go
We're
to
doing the longest
bed.
shows now. Go to bed. A lot of people say like so many people are just like, I'm putting off studying to watch the show. Don't jeopardize your activities.
I'll run flashcards with you.
We'll still be here. We'll still be here at the end of it. Vanessa Gritton,
Thank you
for coming. Anything you want to plug? Anything you want to send people to?
Yeah, I know we said a lot of stuff about cable, but I need cable to pay rent. So Thursday nights at 10:30 Eastern on El Rey Nation, El Rey Network. You can find me on El Rey Nation. Please tune in. It's every Thursday. It's a blast to film. Please check it out.
Awesome. Yeah, El Rey, one of many of those networks on the as so many of our friends involved with that show too. So it's great to see some friendly faces on TV. Ed Greer.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You can follow me at Ed Greer Destroys on Twitter or Instagram. Also, you can follow at Nerd Goat Podcast. That's my podcast. And you can listen to a Nerd Goat Podcast at nerdgoatpodcast.com or on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. And Nerd Goat is me talking to interesting people about their favorite fictional characters. Me and my boy Ron Swallow and my producer Bill. And we break it on down. And our Patreon is popping, son.
Nice.
Like our Patreon is straight popping right now, son. I am very happy about it. We're dropping these young contents on them, and it's pretty cool right now. It's pretty cool right now. Oh, and you can check me out on Comedy Central if you have the app, or if you're in Canada, there's some weird app that buys Comedy Central stuff, and it shows it, so you can check it out there. I'm on the second episode about criminality because, boy, I'm a thug. And so it's been, this is a great time, guys. Thank you for having me on here. This has been a great time of life. And I want to tell you this on air. I'm so proud of you. Like literally watching you on the show, like when I saw you from the bar on the very first episode, it's like, oh, she makes some drinks. You know what I mean?
my gosh, thank you.
It's like the cutest thing ever. So
Of course, you would notice the drinks first. Wouldn't you?
Yeah. She started up some blue milk.
What's that bitch ass drink that she's making over there?
First of all, it's gin and tonic. Gin is a man's drink. And also, that commercial came on while I was in a bar last night, and I got accosted by a lot of old women, and it was really fascinating.
Billy, use that as your outro. Billy Business. I'm Dan Murrell. Thanks for watching. Have a good weekend. We'll see you next week on Screen Junkies Universe. Stay safe.
Bye.